afternoon. Well, it would be afternoon if we had these technical difficulties any longer. We're sorry we're late. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Perdue. I am the infrastructure nerd, and you are attending one of Attorney Computer Systems Coffee Pot webinars. Today we are talking about the difference between PracticeMaster and Worldox for document management. Now, what that means is that PracticeMaster has a document management component. Worldox is strictly a document management program. PracticeMaster has been enhanced, especially in the area of document management, with the latest release, version 17. So it's time for us to kind of take a look again and see where we are with PracticeMaster and Worldox and how they compare. A lot of people make the decision between the two as to what they want to use for document management when the time comes to automate that task, that document management task within a firm. And so today we're going to talk more about that. But before we do, a little bit of housekeeping. What you're looking at on my screen now is the GoToWebinar control panel. And, well, and now you're not. Now we are again. There we go. And there's my mouse. That's what I was looking for. And this part right here is where you type a question. Now, if you're seeing this here with the part to type a question, it's because you have not clicked this button here that looks like an arrow pointing to the right. Clicking that button will cause this whole thing here to go out of the way. All you'll be able to see once you click that button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right will be this little bar here. This button, once you've done that, will turn into a button that looks more like an arrow pointing to the left. Clicking it again will cause this to slide out. As I said earlier, this is where you type a question. So if you're shy and you want to ask a question, type it here, hit the send button. Leanne, our humble and nervous moderator, because I'm so late getting my technical difficulties straightened out, our humble moderator, Leanne, will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt me at the appropriate time, and she will ask a question on your behalf. Okay, she's not really nervous. I'm the one who's nervous, but let's not go there. If you are not feeling shy, then you can press this button here that looks like an arrow pointing upward in front of a hand. That means raise your hand. And so if you raise your hand, Leanne, our humble moderator, will recognize that you have raised your hand. She will interrupt me just as she would if you had typed a question, but instead of reading your question, what she will do is unmute you. So be careful if you raise your hand to not start eating potato chips or Fritos, because momentarily you will be unmuted. You will get to ask your own question. That channel of communication will remain open. In other words, you will be unmuted until I'm done answering your question. So you can keep asking more follow-up questions, or you can keep me on track if I get off track and start to go down a different path than the one that bears any resemblance to the question that you've asked. Same is true for if you're typing a question. You can continue to type follow-up questions or help me to understand what it is that you're asking by typing here and remembering to continue hitting send, and Leanne will continue interpreting your questions on your behalf. So without any further ado, I'm going to click this magic button and this magic button, and I'm going to get out of here, and this is PracticeMaster. Now, PracticeMaster is a lot of things, and we're not going to talk about any of those things except for document management. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here to the client screen, and we're going to pull up Michael Larson, and we're going to click on this document tab, and we're going to see a list of documents from Michael Larson. Now, likewise, we're going to go here, and we are going to go into, let's go to Find, and we're going to look for Purdue Law Offices, and we're going to pull up a list of documents for them. So two programs that will pull up lists of documents, two document management programs, one being PracticeMaster. With its matter-centric view, we pull up the matter. This is matter 100.00 for Michael Larson. One being Worldox. Again, matter-centric. It's Purdue Law Offices. They happen to be client number 10336.00, looking at their documents. Now, there are a lot of similarities and there are a lot of differences. Some of these similarities or differences are feature-oriented, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Some of them are more theoretical, if you will. So let's first talk about a few things that are different here. Obviously, we can pull up a list of documents for a matter in both programs. Worldox, however, is a true document management system that is meant to stand on its own, so it's not part of a practice management system. Therefore, I can also have what we call profile groups for non-matter related stuff. We have a client files profile group, and when I go to search in it, I can specify the client and the matter and pull up documents for that client for that matter. But I can also store documents. We have something we call best practices. These are neat things that we know about Worldox, PracticeMaster, and tabs. We have a confidential file folder drawer or profile group. We have a place to store all the email that we send that can't be classified to a client. We have an office drawer or profile group. These are all places to put documents that don't, other than this, the client files area, that don't relate to a client and don't relate to a matter. So Worldox allows us to go outside the boundaries of a matter and client management system and store documents that maybe are confidential and that only Leanne and I have access to, or that are office oriented and therefore don't have fields like client and matter, but instead have fields like doc type and author. So that's a big, huge difference for some firms. With a PracticeMaster approach, if you're going to manage those other documents in the document management component of PracticeMaster, you need to set up matters for them. Now, that leads me to the next big difference. Worldox is usually set up in what we call a locked down, closed, compliant-oriented way, and PracticeMaster is more open. What do I mean by that? I mean that in PracticeMaster, I can go into Word. Here's an article that I'm writing for the Michigan Bar Journal. And when I go to save this, it pops up Worldox. Because Worldox is loaded, it happens to have already saved it, so it doesn't do anything. If I go to Save As, again, it pops up Worldox and says, I'll put it away for you. I notice you've already stored it. Are you storing this as version 2? Do you want to save it as a new file? If you just want it to go back where it was. Worldox is always there. Now, in order to show you what happens when I am not in Worldox, I'm going to close Worldox. And I'm going to go to Save. But I do it this way. I go over to the PracticeMaster ribbon. I click on PM Save. And PracticeMaster pops up. What's different? Well, when Worldox is loaded and running, which it should always be, and I'm actually going to go back and load it up again. When Worldox is loaded and running, it takes over the save everywhere. It's not that I go somewhere and say, put this away in Worldox. It's that when I hit save, whether it be here or through the file, or just by, anybody who knows me knows I'm old and I come from an era before we had these mouse things. If I just hit Control-S, bam, Worldox pops up and says, I'll put it away. I'll take care of it. That's closed. That means you cannot put a document away without Worldox popping it up. And the thing about Worldox is it works that way everywhere. I don't think we've ever found something we couldn't hook into. So if you've got some obscure PDF creation software, or you've got something that you use to organize your JPEG images for trial presentations, or you've got Publisher or Excel or anything that you've got, Worldox will pop up when you hit the regular save button and say, I'll take care of it. Just tell me where to put it, and I'll put it away for you. Likewise, with Worldox running, when you go into any of those programs and say you want to open a file, it pulls up the regular Worldox screen that lets you go to your favorite files or pull up a certain matter and find your document. So Worldox locks things down and says, I am going to be the way that you put documents away. I am going to be the way that you retrieve documents. And if you try to go the other way, if you try to go into Word and just save a document directly, you can't. I'm going to pop up. PracticeMaster says, well, I'm going to install a toolbar in some of the common applications, Word, all of the Office suite, meaning Word, Excel, Publisher, Outlook. not publisher, the one that you do the presentations with that I can't think of right now. But all of the Office suite and Adobe, and it also puts one into Windows Explorer so that if I find a document out here that I want to send to PracticeMaster, I just right-click on it and say send to PracticeMaster. There it is. Okay. So PracticeMaster gives you these tools to get things in, but it is not a closed, it is not a compliant-oriented system, and therefore it's not locked down. Now, for some firms, that's great. That's what they want. For other firms, the big decision to get into document management hinges a lot, almost entirely, on being able to lock people into putting things into the document management system, putting them into the DMS, the document store, and making sure that they do that so that we know that all our documents are in Worldox. Now, of course, when you have a system like that, you have to account for ways for people to put away personal things or user-oriented things, but you also then have the way to put things away that are office-related, and you have a forms library, and you may have a brief bank, and you have things that are not matter-related, and you have that ability. With PracticeMaster doing the document management, it may not matter that you can't put something away except in a matter because, or in a certain client matter, because you may take the other documents and simply put them in the folders that you've always put them in. So those two things kind of go together. Worldox is compliant, Worldox is closed and locked down. PracticeMaster doesn't force that compliance. It's not closed, it's not locked down, it's an open system. For some that's good, for others it's not. Okay, let's go back to a couple other things. Worldox does have, and this is the indexer in Worldox, we're not going to talk about that. Worldox does have the ability to access documents outside the office, but it's a separate thing. It's either the enterprise server or the cloud offering, and so you have to, it's a little bit more expensive to do that way. PracticeMaster, if you have the platinum version of PracticeMaster, I'm going to take us to something called Tabs 3 Connect. Which is their online version of some of the functionality that's available within PracticeMaster. And we're going to sign in real quick to my regular system, and we're going to pull up Purdue Law Offices there. And if it's set up right, your documents can be viewed and accessed on the internet without any additional cost. Obviously, it's taking its time establishing this secure connection. But here we are, and I'm going to sign in as me. And so one of the things that I can do in Matter Manager is pull up, for instance, Purdue Law. And see things including documents, but we don't have any documents stored for Purdue Law. And we could see a document here in the Matter Manager, and we could click on a link and load that document, okay? Not exactly the eloquent total solution that Worldox offers in the way of getting to a document outside the office. You pull that document down, let's say, to your iPad or to your computer, and then you just take it back to the office and put it back where it belongs, as opposed to Worldox, which lets you, if you've paid the money to have this outside access to your documents, then you have a much more robust and full-featured way of getting to them, checking them out, making sure other people don't edit them while they're gone, getting them checked back in. So PracticeMaster has, as part of its offering, this thing called Tabs 3 Connect, which includes the Matter Manager, which includes a way to look at documents either in the All Activity view, or if you were looking just at documents, I guess we do have one. And if I go like that, what it does is it downloads this file to my local machine and opens it up. So I have that ability, but then when I go to save it, If I'm using PracticeMaster's way of doing things, then I'm kind of on my own. Well, it's in a protected view. If I enable editing, when I go to save it, it's going to want me to save it to my local drive, or in this instance to Worldox, simply because Worldox is loaded. But it's going to want me to save it to my local drive or to my iPad, which is fine, as long as I have the right iPad editing software for a Word document. But then it's up to me to get it back in. Worldox has a more robust, a more defined methodology for getting to your documents from outside your office, but it's also significantly more expensive. I mean, we're talking $5,000 to $7,000 to get an enterprise server set up and installed, and that doesn't include the cost of the hardware and the bandwidth that you need, whereas PracticeMaster, as long as you've got the Platinum version, gives you this Tabs Reconnect functionality that allows you to simply go in and access your documents. Another thing is cost. We already talked about the cost to get to your documents externally, simply because Worldox charges more for their external tools. Cost itself, Worldox is about $500 per seat, plus about $500 per seat to get it installed and trained and everybody working well within it. Whereas PracticeMaster, if you've got it already and you're thinking of using it for document management, then PracticeMaster is going to give you exactly what you need at no additional cost. So that's a huge factor. Worldox, $1,000 extra per seat. PracticeMaster, you've already got it. It's free then. Well, not free. Nothing's free. There are no free lunches. But you've got to learn how to use it, and it's yours. Okay? If you don't already have PracticeMaster, but you're thinking of getting it, among other things, to do document management, you're talking anywhere from $300 a seat to $400 or $500 a seat, depending on whether you're getting Platinum or not and how many users you have. Now, the other side of the coin there is training. Worldox, expensive to implement, expensive to train, but PracticeMaster, if you've already got tabs or if you've already got PracticeMaster, adding document management doesn't really require that much extra training. I was at a firm the other day, not training them specifically in document management, but training them in certain things about PracticeMaster, and the person that I was training said, oh, well, this was real easy because I already used tabs. Well, it's kind of the same theory. If you already use tabs and you put in PracticeMaster, it's a lot easier to use. And if you already use PracticeMaster, but you just don't use it for document management, then it's much, much easier to use. So those factors are huge for some firms. The PracticeMaster implementation is going to be significantly less expensive, significantly less disruptive, and significantly less training intensive. Now, what do I mean by disruptive? Worldox, if we put it in, it does change entirely the way you store documents, the way you retrieve them. Lawyers are document-oriented, and as are their staff and everybody else that's involved in a law firm. And so it's disruptive to totally change the way that you do documents. So why would you want to put in Worldox? Well, there are some features in Worldox that you're not going to find in a PracticeMaster. In Worldox, for instance, if I look at this article that I'm writing, one of the things you're going to see down here is this. This is a doc ID. Document stamping is a feature of Worldox that a lot of firms use and a lot of firms like and want. This is actually the name of the document. It's 000-29528. It is also the document ID. And the document stamp, which is what I'm showing you here, is kind of an automatic feature in Worldox. It's not part of PracticeMaster. So document IDs and the document stamping functionality are something that make people want to select a Worldox as opposed to a PracticeMaster. Another thing that's huge in a lot of firms is security and feature access. In PracticeMaster, the only way I can lock somebody out of a certain group of documents is to secure, I think it's here, right here, well, maybe I don't even have it in my demo system, sure I do, is to make the client secure. So if you want to secure certain documents, they have to go into a matter that's secure, and then all of the documents for that matter are secure from a users that are not authorized to access that matter. In Worldox, it's much easier to secure just a document, a whole group of documents like the confidential files or the partner profile group. It's much easier to apply security at a document level. If I go into my favorites and click on this document and say security, it's already secured, but that's all right, or it's already open. I can make it hidden. I can give custom rights. I can make it read-only. Custom rights, I can say people can find it and they can read it, but they can't write or change the profile or delete it, or it's secure in some other way. So I can really get in on a person-by-person basis, a matter-by-matter basis, a client-by-client basis, a group of documents by group of documents basis. In other words, the confidential profile group versus the regular forms profile group can have different levels of security. Forms would be read-only. The confidential would be only accessible by certain people. In Worldox, I can manage groups. So I can say the partners are allowed to access this profile group, and here's who's in the partner group right now: Bob, Phil, and Joanne. But Joanne left, so all I have to do is take her out of that group, and she no longer has access to those documents. George came in as a new partner. I simply add him to that group, and he's automatically assigned access to all the documents that the partners are allowed to have access to. So I can assign this security by group and by user, and I can assign it all over the place. You know, here on a document level, like I just showed you, specific to a group, specific to a person. I can build what we call, sometimes they're called Chinese walls, sometimes they're called ethical walls, where George is leaving, so he still has access to these 5 matters, but only these matters, everything else he cannot touch. A lot of stuff there that you just plain can't do with PracticeMaster. Similarly, all the functionality within Worldox is really also assigned on a group or a user basis. So I can say certain people can delete files and others can't. I can say something like, I don't want to accidentally delete that. Let's go there. Certain people can move to the salvage bin, which is kind of like moving to the recycle bin, but only certain other people can delete or shred. That's quite common in a firm to say everybody can move to the salvage bin, but only certain people can delete and nobody can shred. You just can't do that in PracticeMaster. You don't have the feature level access to say this group of people is allowed to do this, but not this and not this, and yes, they are allowed to do that. Another thing that's kind of common in document management systems is the ability to do auditing, and Worldox does it. It can track who opens files, looks at them, deletes them, shares them. Any action that's being performed on a file is being tracked as long as it's turned on into the audit logs. So later on, when you want to find out who deleted that file, or you want to find out who's looked at this document, or you want to find out all the history of all the people that have looked at a certain or worked with a certain document, you can go back to the audit logs and do that. You just can't do that with PracticeMaster. It's not one of the things that they're trying to do with their practice management system. And as we mentioned, it's not matter-centric. Worldox is not. It has this matter centricity so that when I go to retrieve documents, I can say, yes, I want to retrieve documents from the client profile group, and therefore I'm going to choose a client, and I'm going to choose a matter. But I also can store documents outside that realm of matter centricity in whatever types of profile groups I set up to handle my firm's specific needs. In our instance, it's Office, email, confidential, and best practices. That is a bird's eye view of the differences between Worldox and PracticeMaster. Leanne, do we have any questions?
There are no questions, Paul.
Okay, very good. Well, that means I'm either being too obtuse and I'm just not explaining things well and people are snoring, or I'm being good and explaining things quite well. So if you do come up with questions, please contact me. My email address will show at the end of this recorded webinar. If you happen to be attending live, just for brevity, I'll give you my short email address. It's paul@paulpurdue.com, and it's Purdue like the school, not the chicken. P-U-R-D-U-E, paul@paulpurdue.com. Or if you feel like typing for quite a bit longer, paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com. Don't forget the S. Now, if you go to attorneycomputersystems.com, like I'm about to, you can always see all the content that we have. We have a lot of it. If you scroll down here, you're currently attending a coffee pot webinar. In fact, you're attending this one. But as you go to one of these groups of content, we have 3 virtual user group meetings, one for tabs, one for PracticeMaster, one for Worldox. We have these coffee pot webinars. We have our eBytes video series where Mary Jo has short little snippets about a very specific topic. And we have our TV show format, the Paul and Mary Jo show. All these things have at least the live events like the coffee pot webinars and the virtual user group meetings. This is where you register for the next one. But if you scroll down, all of these pages have all of the recorded versions that we've ever done, and we have a lot of recorded content. So be certain to visit here as often as you like and take advantage of all that we have to offer there. Everybody have a good rest of the day, rest of the week, rest of the month, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Thanks much. Bye-bye.